Hi, I'm Andrew.
And I'm Dave, and we're the IB English guys. And today is video number 4 of our series. It's a 5-video series looking at the higher level essay. We've already talked about lines of inquiry, we've outlined and brainstormed, we've written introductions and conclusions. And today,
Mr. Giles, we're digging into the meat of this paper. Let's look at those body paragraphs, figure out what goes in there, and how you too can write strong body paragraphs to show your knowledge of your chosen text.
absolutely.
Mr. Giles, can we just remind our viewers of the line of inquiry that we're working with?
Sure. Here it goes. How does Atul Fugard utilize the conventions of avant-garde theater in his drama Sizwe Banzi is Dead to convey the struggle for identity for Black South Africans during apartheid?
Yeah, really nice line of inquiry. We've talked about that in previous videos. It has the 7 components. It has this rich idea in green, and of course, focusing on the conventions of avant-garde theater. That is our literary focus for this paper, okay?
That's right. So we wrote a rich outline with lots of textual evidence and features and details, but we wanted just to have a rudimentary outline so we're connected to what are the big ideas. So our first paragraph is going to be about improvisation in the real world. Then we're going to talk about that minimal set and the use of transitions, how that conveys the bleak reality of Black identity.
Yeah, then of course you're going to move on and talk about that exaggerated storytelling and the multiple roles that actors take on to show that quest for survival. And then of course your strongest idea, the one that you feel most confident about, is that breaking of the fourth wall and how that shows taking action against oppression.
That's right. So we're choosing to look at the final 2 body paragraphs of our paper just to zero in on. But before we do that, let's talk about some critical components and features of good body paragraphs. This is good for any essay writing, by the way.
Yeah. Of course, you've heard this since you were a small child in school. You need to have clear topic sentences that are anchored in the topic, focus, and include a rich idea. This is no different than any other type of academic writing you do. Make sure that first sentence declares the focus.
Yeah, then of course we want to refer to the text. We want to have textual references. We want to have quotations or examples that are embedded in our sentences. This is important.
Yeah, and of course, when you drop a reference, you want to link that, pin that to a literary or stylistic feature. It's very important that those two come out in pairs, otherwise you're missing key aspects of the rubric and you're not really showing the deepest knowledge that you can.
I find that this sometimes as examiner is the pitfall, is that students don't label and talk about literary elements in their higher level essays, and this is in the criteria. So
Folks, this is an English class. You have to talk about literary aspects.
And if we have a literary aspect that we've identified it in the line of inquiry, we're more apt to do that. Another important thing. Of course, we want to think about the author-audience or author-reader relationship, really important. And finally,
Mr. Giles, you need to think about, of course you want to have links to the line of inquiry, but transition words are very, very important as well. I think, if you're not linking to the line of inquiry frequently, you're sort of off topic.
Correct.
And we need these transition words to kind of help us navigate not only within paragraphs, but between paragraphs as well. Oftentimes as examiners, we'll see paragraphs that it seems like you could just change the order because the transitions have not been thoughtfully composed. So you want to make sure that the idea of one paragraph logically leads to the idea in the topic sentence of the next paragraph.
Okay, great. So let's take a look at 2 body paragraphs. The reason we chose 2 so you can see how they link together and talk about some of the components. So why don't you talk about this first?
Yeah, I'd like to read the first sentence because the first time I read the paper, I was really struck by this. It says, while the minimalist plot and seamless transitions help to emphasize Black lives and Black identity, the exaggerated storytelling techniques, such as switching between characters, help to underscore the importance of acting a role for Black South Africans' survival. Mr. Giles, that is a big transition. Can you talk a little bit about what you've done there?
Well, I had a colleague once tell me that transitions sometimes say where you were and where you're going. So I guess the purple part is where I was. So this is the previous paragraph topic, talking about the minimalist plot and the transitions. And then I'm connecting to the main topic of the paragraph, which is the exaggerated storytelling and how that connects to acting a role.
Yeah, I think that's a seamless transition. You could not strip that paragraph out and reorder it because that transition would not permit that, right? So you've done well. Mr. Giles, I noticed again, I see lots of yellow terms in there. Could you just remind our viewers what you're doing with that yellow?
Yeah, so as I'm talking about that particular moment in the play in the Ford factory and all the roles that he's playing, I'm thinking about, again, how can I talk about this in a literary way and look at the dramatic elements? So I'm looking at the irony, I'm looking at the dialogue, the colloquial language. I'm really trying to talk about that in a literary way to emphasize.
Yeah, and of course, since we're within the paragraph now, you can use a more simplistic transition such as however. And of course, again, you take some rich textual references, you pin those to literary features, and I really like how in the concluding sentence you reconnect, of course, linking, like we said, back to that concept of identity within the given context of apartheid. You've really taken those 6 or 7 elements that we talked about for body paragraphs, the 6 elements, and you've successfully worked those into your body paragraph, and it's turned out to be quite successful and focused.
And again, like just trying to quote the text and talk about the text in a literary way. So then the next body paragraph is again, the transition's simpler. It's just like, finally, I'm getting to my last point, but I'm actually like admitting that this is probably the most, prominent, most avant-garde feature that there is. And I love that breaking of the fourth wall. And that was what I had sort of saved for the end.
Yeah, you did save it for the end. I like that choice, but I do notice something that just to be frank, I'm not sure how I feel about it. You've added another source, and I just wanted to ask you why you've made that choice. Because remember, folks, you do not need secondary sources in the higher level essay, but Mr. Giles has made that choice. Could you explain your choice here?
The only times I've included sources are when I'm trying to define a term that I thought was important. And so for me, the alienation effect was worthy of...
Can you say that word for me, please?
Yeah, the Fremdungseffekt. And I included the German because Bertolt Brecht is the sort of... was the pioneer of this particular technique, so this is what it's called. And so I included just a short source to where I got that information. But again, this is breaking the fourth wall. This is what they do, is when the actors are talking directly to the audience. It's very prominent in this play.
Yeah, and as I read through this paper, of course, this is your main idea, your big point that you want to make. I noticed that you reach out a little bit in the end to Greek tragedies, and you include a Greek word as well. Can you talk about that choice?
Yeah, well, this moment of self-awareness, this moment where the actor strips his clothes off and asks the audience, what's happening in the world, this is a powerful moment in the play. This is almost the climax. And this is so rooted to identity. This again, I guess when I was writing it, I wanted to talk about the self-awareness. I remembered the Greek term of agnoresis, and again, it reminded me of Oedipus. So I just sort of was like inspired to connect to Oedipus.
I think this really indicates your passion for the topic. You chose something that you care deeply about, and you have a lot of ideas that are connected to that. Now, students, we don't expect you to know all these Greek terms and link out to other plays, but again, just make sure that you are bringing your best information, your richest discussion forward.
I included the Greek term, but I also included what it means as self-awareness. You could say either way. I mean, I just was labeling a term. I wasn't trying to put in a fancy term that I didn't know. I was just putting in a term that I did know, but then again, I even explained what it does mean.
Another thing that I believe is notable is how the concluding sentence of this paragraph really shows that very tight focus on identity, right? And that's a thread that's been throughout the entire paper, and that really has made this a very cohesive higher level essay.
So just once again, good body paragraphs have strong topic sentences, they quote the text frequently, they have good, rich, literary elements or stylistic elements, and they're connected to that line of inquiry, that green rich idea.
They include the words, the author's name, and they have transition words. These are the 6 elements we would expect to see in your paper, and if you do that, you're going to be in a very strong position.
You are going to be in that special club. Now, in our next video is we're going to talk about editing, we're going to talk about revisions, we're going to talk about self-evaluation, and we're going to look at what do we do with our paper once we're done writing it, how can we make it better, what are some different steps we can take, and then finally we'll just do a little bit of final evaluation of the entire paper.
Yeah, so folks, make sure you join us back for that 5th and final video where we'll reveal the entire paper that Mr. Giles has written, and we'll talk through it, and hopefully that'll provide you the insight and the confidence that you need to finish your higher level essay. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you on video 5.
Bye, guys.